What is up, everybody, and welcome to the second video of Wednesday. This one is going to be looking over the Venompool buff. Venompool as a champion has not a lot going for him, so a massive overhaul is definitely needed, and this hopefully will satisfy players. So let's have a look at what's proposed in the changes. It still very much feels like we've got the same Venompool, but there's like slight twists to things in that these blender buffs and the fact that you kind of like cooking meter, it does very much have the kind of spin of Deadpool, but adds this kind of like similar twist than what we've had previously, but now there's something a bit more. So this does sound on paper like we're going in a positive direction to allow you more buffs, more interaction, especially with tech champions, with power drain and damage over time immunities. So, you know, there's some good interaction there, but let's read on. Venompool now looks like he is going to be a powerhouse, more so when you're going up against champions that have high buffs. So like the Venom fight in, like we've seen with Summer of Pain, and also where that's taken from, which off the top of my head I'm thinking is Act 4.6. God, honestly, there's been so many acts, it's hard to remember in particular fight, but you know, the one, or any kind of fight where you get a huge amount of buffs, this one will interact quite nicely with. Also, stealing buffs. Yes, the champion will steal buffs, so going up against those champions is going to be great for kind of like damage potency. So how does cooking meter kind of work? Because cooking meter gets you blender buffs. Venompool has a cooking meter which begins at 50 charges and gains 10 more charges every 5 seconds. Any attack from either champion grants 4 charges. Each time the cooking meter hits 100, that amount is spent to grant a random, unique, indefinite blender buff, which can be found at the bottom of the info page. Which range from Precision, Energize, Clintar Mutation, Malice up to 100% Fury buff potency. Blender buffs don't stack. Once Venompool has acquired all 5 other blender buffs, he will instead gain stacking Fury buffs, which each grant. Damn! Okay. This sounds pretty cool. If that's what the champion is able to build, this extensive amount of kind of like buffs, then this is going to be very nice. Especially in interaction with Spider-Verse champions, which ignore like the evading. So, man, this is good. It's certainly a far cry from the time when you've got to rely on your signature ability to every 6 seconds. The symbiote known as Venom has a 45% chance to access Deadpool's unique memory and grant him a random buff. Yes, it's very different to how it was before to how it is now. And that potency looks like it could be absolutely amazing for players. Whether or not this is going to be something that players will take into the lines of Abyss of Legends is going to be debatable, especially as the same narrative of King Groot and this champion remain the same. The longer you're in a fight, the longer you're building the cooking meter, the longer you're building whatever it is, the more damage you're doing. So that seems to be the kind of thing that Cabal are making with these buffs, especially this month. So that still excites me. I'm well up for this. And the champion is sustainable against the likes of tech champions. Immunity to power drain, power burn, and shock effects, similar to what is with King Groot. King Groot's got something similar. As armor break debuffs, if an effect is prevented this way, gain 50 cookie meter. So against techs, you're building cookie meter like boom, boom, boom. Love it. That is fantastic. And the mana pool is open. Those pesky tech champions are going to have no chance draining anytime soon. Good. There's also a nice thing with the heavy attack, which is that reroll the most recently gained blender buff. If the opponent is knocked down, 100% chance to gain a vicious buff, increasing the potency of damage over time debuffs by 60%. This lasts 5 seconds per unique buff. And that could be really cool to rotate around things that seem to work for you. If for whatever reason you're going to be getting a random buff and you want that back, then at least you could say that you're getting that. So yeah, that sounds absolutely perfect for specifying which buff that you need for whatever purpose, if it indeed pops up, because it may not come up instantly. It also seems with the champion that the bleed aspect to it still remains, but its potency looks like it improves a lot, especially if you look at like here, and I'm sure that with the rarity, which we're probably looking at 565 versus right here, which is the 4-star version, it's going to mean for some great opportunities, even against tech champions, which the notes say that the change in this when you're going up against robots is that instead it's going to be a degeneration debuff. So that's great news to know that there's that interaction there. It certainly will be interesting to see about the potency of that bleed, especially if you go to Aunt May. It gives you an idea that the damage potential could be a little bit less than that, but I think again that could be down to just kind of like maybe some info may not be 100% correct, but it looks like it comes in line, but it's based on if you throw an SP2 then you do more damage to the bleed, same with the SP3, so there's a lot of stuff to really consider with that, and we'll see when the champion's released and you can test it whether or not the potency of bleed is there, and also the potency of that degen. The next thing to talk about is sustainability. There's a chance that when you are trying to rotate around the SP1, that if the Nom buff was on an armor up, also gain regeneration buff. So there's a chance, but that's not kind of like 100% sustainable, and there may be something in order to like rework around that to make it happen. But still, there could be some good chance for regeneration, which before you had to wait for a regeneration buff to kind of like randomly pop up. So I guess that's good. It's just the same way of randomized, and there's chances as opposed to it being like it's RNG dependent on it, but it seems good. Now the SP2 looks cool enough, but it's the SP3 that interests me the most because it is all about being spicy. Yes, Venompool's cooking meter becomes spicy for 20 seconds, which causes it to build up twice as fast. If the cooking meter hits 100 while it's spicy, all personal bleed and degeneration debuffs on the opponent are paused for 8 seconds. Very nice. Kabam say here that everything is better when you add a little bit of hot sauce, and Venompool's pending cooking meter is no different. Call up your friends and share tons of buffs with them, all with the help of Venompool's SP3. So if you're looking to yourself, like just after an SP2 maybe, it depends on like how quickly you can build power, because you can here the SP2 build power quickly, get onto the SP3, look about when you hit that cooking meter 100, and then it's the case that you're able to pause the debuff, the bleed and degeneration effects, and kind of like continue that that debuff damage and dot damage, and just like hopefully do a lot more damage over time, as opposed to your well, depending on where you are with the blender. If you're not there, then boom, hit him with the SP3. It's very nice. Okay, now on to signature ability, and that is equally as spicy. Being awakened, he is able to have a persistent charge. This is great because he chooses from a pre-fight menu. It's food orientated with this, and he gets to select one blender buff as his fave food. So depending on what type of fight you're going up against, you can choose one of the various ones that we've talked about, which is Precision, Energized, Clintar, Mutation, which is good if you're going into a fight and going, okay, I'm kind of against a Spider-Man, I'll choose the blender buff Clintar Mutation, so I can have that level of interaction as well against them. You've also got like Malice if you want to do Fury, so you're going up against a tech or going up against a champion that would be frustrating for whatever degree. So at least to say that the best chance you have is kind of like choosing your best foot forward, prepared when you do that, when you're going to go to the cooking meter above 100. But also that 60% potency, which, let's face it, if you're choosing like I don't know, the Clintar Mutation to get like the stonks of damage, or up to 100% Fury potency based on how long the fight has gone, so Malice, there's lots of different choices there depending on what you're interested in. But yeah, sounds good. Synergy wise, there's not really anything to write about that's overly impressive, except for there's a few things here and there, but it means unique champions that are not Venompool, not really getting anything, but it's understandable. This champion's got like when with a Deadpool, when the cooking meter hits 100, 40% chance to gain a regeneration buff, recovering 5% of max health over 15 seconds. That's helpful. That's quite supportive. But apart from that, there's nothing really kind of like overly kind of like shouting out to me here about stuff. Start of Fight 1 blender buff activated. That's kind of helpful. So if you have Venom, Agent Venom, or Venom the Duck, and Symbiote Supreme, also if you've got Symbiote Supreme and have this with it. But apart from that, there's nothing, overly. There's some good stuff. It's just not overly massive. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, are you really going to set up a team around just having Venompool and all the kind of like different associates for synergies? Probably not. You'll probably go for some very kind of go-to champions. Symbiote Supreme, of course. Venompool, yeah, okay, with this matchup, and then it'll be 3 other champions associated with something else, depending if you're doing monthly content, or you're doing exhibition play for like video recording, or indeed you're kind of doing something like Act 7 for whatever reason. But a lot of the times it may not be the ideal setup, but you know, I'm sure there'll be something out there content-wise that this guy and a team will be associated with the synergy setup. Either way, it looks really, really positive to what they're going to be doing with Venompool, and as well some of his interactions, especially with tech champions, and his potency and rotation. More so for the awakened ability, which puts you in the not correct, but the best blender buff that you want to see. And definitely, like, you know, look at his signature, his abilities and signature ability. It's all change, it's all better, and you'll love to see it. You'd love to see it. In any case, that has been the video. Thank you ever so much for watching. Make sure to check out the content recently posted today. It's probably the Marvel Contest of Champions news. I'm about to take a little bit of a mini vacation type thing, so there's going to be a lot of kind of like scheduling content over the weekend before I come back strong for a big push for next week, and look forward to that. But there's still content coming out on the channel. Much love, and see you very soon. Bye bye.